Hey guys, it's Jake Calderon with 12rounder.com here giving you 12-rounder radio. It was a fun little weekend we're just coming off. Start off real quick, I'll give you some quick results. You can check out the full quick results in the link, or at the link below, in the description of course. Carl Frampton picked up a version of the 122-pound title with a decision over Kiko Martinez. Adrian Broner, in a fairly entertaining fight, of course, beat Emmanuel Taylor by decision. Matisse got a weird stoppage. Lucas Matisse, that is, got a weird stoppage over Roberto Ortiz. And Andre Berto returned to winning ways with a win over Steve Upshur, all in the same card, those last three fights that happened in Cincinnati, Ohio. Frampton got the job done against Martinez in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Now, of course, I'm a man of my word, and I hope you people come to know me as a man of my word. And I made a little bit of a gentleman's wager, if you will, about the Adrian Broner fight with Emmanuel Taylor. I thought, personally, that Emmanuel Taylor, that Emmanuel Taylor was probably not going to last as long as Carlos Molina. Molina went the full 10 rounds. This was a 12-round fight, but I still was willing to take that bet. And in the end, I was obviously wrong. I was wrong, and I bet YouTube user Sniper, so I just have to say, he was right, I was wrong, and I gotta be totally honest, as much as I do hate being wrong, and I'm not going to try and hide that fact by any means, there was a small sliver, a small part of me that was sort of happy I was wrong. I was certainly happy that I was wrong and that we got a much better fight. It was much more competitive than I thought it was going to be, and it was a fairly entertaining affair. But I was also happy that I was actually wrong, not just for the fight. Part of me that was happy that I was wrong was that that performance, that fight itself, sort of laments my point. That Broner is sort of built up as this guy who's going to handle people, in theory, like Taylor, in a much easier way than he inevitably does. And that is effectively who Broner is. So much to the point that even I myself was convinced that he was going to be able to handle Taylor, who I still think is a fairly limited fighter, doesn't have great punching power, isn't the fastest guy in the world. There are lulls in his activity, and he was knocked down pretty well, let's call it, in the 12th round against Broner. It was a beautiful left hook. I gotta give credit where credit is due. The fact of the matter is, if Broner's the guy that people are saying he is, he should have been able to do that earlier, and he should have been able to stop him and finish him. And even I myself was convinced of that, and of course, that didn't happen. In any event, I was, again, wrong. Sniper was right, so I have to give a shout out to him. I'm a man of my word. I have no problem doing it, especially considering it was a pretty interesting fight. It really was that sort of high-speed chess stuff that people talk about all the time, but really don't know what they're talking about. This fight actually did have that. They were actually thinking in there. They were trying to outdo the other, but at the same time, there was still a quality level of skill involved, and it was a very interesting and very competitive fight. In any event, to check more of that out, you can check out the link below in the description, and we will get to the first topic of the show today. That topic is Floyd Mayweather. Now, I know a lot of people, oh yes, shut up about Mayweather. Everyone talks about Mayweather, and that's true, and it's disgusting, and I don't like it, but I'll do it anyway. It's a little bit different of an angle, I suppose, but at the end of the day, when a fighter begins to age, we all sort of ask these sort of questions about him. And that question is, how much does he have left? You know, it's the old adage in boxing, Father Time's undefeated. He'll get the best of any fighter if the fighter gives him enough time. And with Mayweather, you look at him and you say, okay, one could make a reasonable argument that he has not lost a single fight in his entire career. Sure, you could potentially mention the Jose Luis Castillo fight, the first one. You could even mention the Marcos Maidana fight, but at the end of the day, if you were just going to say, unless it was an outright robbery, you'll give him the fights that he got, then he's clearly an undefeated fighter. No draws, no contests, nothing. No failed drug tests, nothing that would perhaps muddy the water or anything like that. At least, not on record, who knows. But the point is, perfect, flawless record. I think what we are going to encounter this Saturday when the two meet, Marcos Maidana and Floyd Mayweather, once again in their rematch MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. I think what we're going to witness is a bit of what I would call, we're gonna see some truth telling in the ring. I think this is the first fight perhaps in Mayweather's career, where we are going to have the truth told to us by Mayweather. And that's not to say that he's dishonest or disingenuous or anything like that. I'm not talking about his character. I'm talking about his abilities in the ring. One could make an argument that while he might be unbeaten, might go down as one of the best ever, whatever your opinion is of him, one could make an argument that he's never been in a fight. Well, I don't think you actually could make that argument, but you could make an argument that he hasn't recently been in a fight that was really going to tell us the truth. Every fight that he's been in, you predicted, unless you were wrong several times, you predicted that he was probably going to win those fights. And obviously you'd be right. There's been maybe 2 fights in his career where you thought, okay, he's doing something here that might tell us a bit of the truth, but we don't know. Maybe. You could make that argument with the Diego Corrales fight. Yes, that was a fight that certainly he was expected to lose by some. So that was a fight definitely that told us a bit of the truth about who he is as a fighter. And you could make that argument even about the aforementioned Castillo rematch, because he didn't have to take that fight. He won. He was the guy that people expected to move forward from that fight in the first place. He didn't have to take that fight. So just taking that fight, you could make an argument that it sort of let us in on a bit of his character again as a fighter. But since those 2 fights, for the most part, you've expected Mayweather to win pretty much every fight he's been in. The odds makers have done much of the same. And in this case, against Maidana this weekend, the odds makers have made him the favorite, and I don't think that there's anything that would lead one to believe that they shouldn't. He is rightfully the favorite. What I mean by this fight's going to tell us the truth is quite simple. If Mayweather has true, genuine greatness left in him, we're going to find out in this fight. I honestly believe that. I don't think this is a hard fight to predict, in that I went with Mayweather. You can check that out in the description as well. There's a link in there for that. But I did go with Mayweather for my pick. That's just, I was not convinced enough that I should go against him. And until I'm convinced, with great reason, I don't really think there's any need to pick against a guy like Mayweather. Now, if you do and you get it right, congratulations. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's just not personally what I plan on doing. That being said, Maidana is the sort of fighter that if you're slipping a little bit, you're taking your eye off the prize, you're not prepared the way you should be, he's going to exploit that. And there's a certain bit of cunning to the way he does it. If he can sense you're getting tired, he's going to attack your body. If he's going to anyway, but it'll make more sense for him to attack your body. If he can sense that you can't take his power, he'll go in for the kill. These are things that obviously require a bit of thought. But for the most part, it doesn't matter. He wouldn't have to think about it. That's what he's going to do to you anyway. And when you have a guy like that who, without thought, just based upon muscle memory or just instinct or whatever you want to call it, when you have a guy that just based upon a natural disposition is going to attack you and make you work for every second of every single round, if you are not prepared to deal with that, or if you cannot prepare for that anymore, because it's your best days or best years or whatever are behind you, it'll be found out in that ring. That's going to happen. And I think this is in a sense, a perfect fight for Mayweather. I don't know if it's, the biggest fight that can be made. As a matter of fact, I know it's not the biggest fight that can be made for Mayweather. But I do know that this is a very good fight in the sense that it'll tell us what we need to know about Mayweather for his last 2 fights. It'll tell us if those 2 fights are even necessary, perhaps. It'll tell us what Mayweather will get, perhaps, in those 2 fights. Because I honestly think Maidana is going to bring the truth out. And it's a bit of a rare trait of a Mayweather fight. That doesn't really occur in Mayweather fights. Now, again, my prediction is Mayweather. So I believe that the truth when it comes out, when it's all said and done, when the truth is revealed, I believe that we're going to be able to say, you know what? Mayweather, maybe he was overlooking Maidana, just surprised by the exact pressure that was poured on him in that first fight, or maybe Maidana just boxed completely out of his skin. It's the best fight that he'll ever put forth on the biggest stage up to that point in his career. Whatever the case may be. Could be a plethora of things, but maybe Mayweather just comes out and completely dominates the fight from first to 12th round, or perhaps even in less time. Or, of course, there's the other option. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Mayweather has a lot less left. But either way, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. But if you were going to buy a Mayweather fight, in a certain sense, this is perhaps one of the better purchases you could make in regards to Mayweather fights. Because all the other fights, while they're big events, while they're certainly interesting, they're the biggest fights of the year, in many respects, the fact of the matter remains that you pretty much knew who was going to win. And even if you think Mayweather's going to win this fight, which I do, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Mayweather wins, but still doesn't quite look like Mayweather. And to me, that's an anomaly in a Mayweather fight. That's not something that always happens. And so I look forward to it in that respect. It'll be very interesting to see. I don't know exactly, again, what I expect. It's a weird fight in a sense because I don't know exactly what I expect. It's one of the few times where, this is just my method personally. It probably makes me a crazy person. That sounds about right, to be truthful. But when I predict fights, when I'm trying to think of who I think's going to win, I try to take every bit of information that I can, the traits of the fighters, and I almost sort of computer generate those fights in my head and what I think is going to happen most often. And it's usually just two series of events in this hypothetical fight in my head that ultimately lead me to predict this guy or that guy. It's that simple. I think, okay, if this fighter has left hook, this guy keeps his right hand down, and that's something that they both consistently do. That's going to be one of the big that's going to be one of the big things in a fight that's going to make it go a certain way. And if that fighter who throws that great left hook against that fighter who keeps his right hand low also has a tremendous jab, then that's it. That's all that goes into the thought of it. I don't overthink it. With this fight, it's very difficult to determine even how it's going to go. I'm going Mayweather. But I gotta be honest with you, that computer-generated fight isn't coming up as clear in my head. It just really isn't. I don't know exactly what because, and I figured out why. That was the thing. I'm thinking about it. Why? I figured out why. But it's the first time I think I can truly, genuinely say this about Mayweather, as opposed to just saying, well, maybe it's the case. You can say maybe it's the case about a bunch of things. This is the first time I can say this about Mayweather and actually think it could potentially be that time. And what I mean is, this is probably the first fight where I could say he could have potentially gotten old effectively overnight. And I don't know what he has left. And if I don't know what he has left, then the fact that he has a great lead right hand might not be relevant to this fight. The fact that he has a great defense on the inside might not necessarily be relevant to this fight. The fact that when he does decide to jab, he can greatly change the tempo of a fight quite quickly. Might not be relevant to this fight. His movement, same thing, might not be relevant to this fight. It's one of the first times I can say that truly and mean it about a Mayweather fight, and it's kind of interesting. That alone, to me, makes that fight this weekend on Saturday, again, Showtime pay-per-view. It makes it pretty interesting. Again, in my personal opinion, you gotta go with the guy that has given you no reason, really, to not go for him. If Mayweather comes in and does a Robert Guerrero job and wins every single round of the entire fight, makes it look easy, makes it almost look boring for himself, that's not going to be completely shocking. I mean, if you're completely shocked by that, you really don't know boxing all that well. Maidana's a great warrior, he's an exciting guy, and he can certainly punch. But at his best, Mayweather can control those sort of fighters. Why he can't do that with Maidana, there's two reasons, potentially. One is obvious. Maidana is a bit awkward. He doesn't just come forward, he does it in a very awkward fashion. So maybe Mayweather needed a fight to figure that part out. But the other reason that might have happened is because maybe Mayweather, the guy that can deal with those sort of fighters, is no more. Maybe that Mayweather doesn't exist. So win, lose, or draw, this fight I genuinely think will tell us quite a bit about Mayweather moving forward. He's, at least contractually, as far as I know and as far as most people have said, he has 2 fights left after this. He has one in May and one in September of 2015. And I think this fight coming up on Saturday is definitely going to be the fight that tells us what we can expect for the final 2 fights, potentially, of the greatest fighter of this era. Very interesting fight. In any event, be sure to click over to part 2. Like, comment, subscribe, of course. Do all that stuff. Tell me what you think about Mayweather. What do you think he has left? What do you think of the fight? Who did you have winning the first fight? By how much? And who do you have winning the second fight? Love to hear all that in the comments and on Twitter at 12ROUNDER Boxing. And be sure to click over to part 2. I'm going to be talking about Alfredo Angulo's move up to middleweight, and I'm going to be talking about Andre Berto moving forwards. Be sure to click over to that, and see you there.